My husband threw me down the stairs after beating me for 3 whole hours. I woke up 2 days later in the hospital with 6 broken ribs and my face so swollen I could hardly open my eyes. That's when I found out he had run off with the neighbor. Yeah, the one who used to smile at me every morning. Hey there, sweethearts. My name's Ruth Thomas, but you can call me Grandma Ruth. I'm 82, born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, a small town in cowboy country. I've been living in Nashville for the past 40 years now. I ended up here because of a story I've never shared online before. It's a story I've kept buried in my heart, like a thorn that stabs deep, but never quite goes away. Before I start, if you want to enjoy more stories, all you need to do is subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, or share a little story of your own. Now, let's get back to it. I was born in 1949 in a small house in Fort Worth. My dad, Mr. James, worked in the buffalo farm. He'd come home every day with dust in his hair, looking like snow had fallen on him. I thought it was beautiful back then, but now I know that dust slowly killed him, his lungs destroyed by the dust. My mom, Mrs. Alice, did laundry for a living and made the best homemade bread in town. We didn't have much, but I never felt like we were missing anything. Our house was small but cozy, 2 bedrooms, one for my parents and one for me and my 2 sisters. A kitchen with a wood stove that stayed burning all day long. The backyard had apple, peach, and cherry trees. My mom took care of a vegetable garden that was more like a palace garden to her. The smell of my childhood, bread baking in the oven, and freshly brewed coffee. The sounds, my little radio playing Elvis Presley while my mom hummed along. The colors, her flowered dress twirling while she cleaned the house. And that beautiful blue forward sky. My mom always said, Ruth, when you find a man, make sure he looks at you the same way your dad looks at me. And it was true. My dad always looked at my mom like she was the most precious thing in the world. Even after working all day in the ranch, he'd come home, wrap his arms around her while she cooked, kiss her forehead, and ask how her day was. My dad used to say, a man who respects you respects everything you are. He'd tell me that when I'd daydream about love stories from magazines. And I promised myself I wouldn't settle for less than that. I grew up believing that love was simple and respectful, full of little moments like that. I thought all men treated women the way my dad treated my mom. I was innocent, raised in a good home. School was far, about an hour's walk each way, but I didn't mind. I loved studying and dreamed of being a teacher. I was always reading anything I could find. My dad, who didn't have much schooling, always encouraged me. He'd say, education is something nobody can take away from you. In 1968, at 19, I graduated from teachers' training school. I was the first in the family to get a diploma. My dad cried that day. He tried to hide it, but I saw it. That silent tear meant more than any speech. I started teaching at a small school near home, kids from 7 to 10 years old. I loved it. Their pure joy when they learned something new. It made me feel important and fulfilled. It was around then that I met Marcus. One day he came to school to enroll his nephew. He was tall, had dark hair, and a thin mustache that framed his smile. He wore a light blue shirt, khaki pants, and polished shoes. Not rich, but he looked well-groomed. "Are you the teacher?" he asked, looking at me in a way that made me blush. I smiled. "Yes, I am. Ruth Thomas, nice to meet you." "Marcus Thompson, the pleasure is mine." His handshake was firm, warm, and it gave me a shiver I had never felt before. His nephew joined my class, and, coincidence or not, Marcus always came to pick him up after school. Always well-dressed, always smiling, always with a compliment. "Teacher Ruth, you look beautiful today. Your eyes are sparkling. Excuse me, but that dress suits you perfectly. I admire smart women." I had never been so flattered. Each compliment felt like water to the garden of my romantic dreams. Each smile made my heart race like a horse galloping. One day he invited me for ice cream after school. I was nervous. I'd never gone out with a man alone before, but I agreed. I told my mom, who was concerned. "Be careful, honey. Men who are too good-looking usually know it." "But, Mom, he's respectful. He hasn't even tried to hold my hand." "Not yet," she said, with that wise look only mothers have. "But who listens when your heart's racing?" I went, and it was perfect. Marcus was funny, smart, full of stories. He worked as a salesman at a furniture store and dreamed of starting his own business. "I want to give my future wife comfort," he said, looking at me like he already had someone in mind. We started dating slowly, always respectful. He'd visit on Sundays and have lunch with my family. He got along well with my dad, talking baseball and politics. He helped my mom with dishes afterward, something no man had ever done in our house. My dad said, "He seems like a good young man, but take it slow, Ruth. Just because he seems perfect doesn't mean there's no dark side." How I wish I had listened to him. In those first 6 months, Marcus was Prince Charming. He'd bring me flowers, write me sweet notes, treat me like I was made of glass. Our kisses were tender, and his hands never crossed the line. "I want to do everything right with you, Ruth. You deserve a man who respects you," he'd say. And I believed him. Of course I did. I had grown up seeing that kind of love from my dad, and I thought every man treated the woman he loved that way. A year later, Marcus proposed. Everyone knew it was coming. He had won over my family, was always there on Sundays, joined us for church. In Nashville, we were the perfect couple. The engagement party was small, just my family, some snacks, and my mom's famous orange cake. My dad gave a heartfelt speech, saying he was handing over his most precious treasure to Marcus. "Take care of her like I did," he said, looking Marcus in the eyes. "I will. I'll make her the happiest woman alive," Marcus promised. The wedding was set for 6 months later. Those months flew by, and we were busy getting the house ready, picking out a trousseau and sending out invitations. Marcus had rented a small house near the school where I taught. It wasn't big, but it was cozy. A little yard where I already planned to grow a garden just like my mom. The closer the wedding got, the more excited I became, but also nervous. My mom, always wise, hugged me one day and said, "Remember, your body is your temple. Even after you're married, it's okay to say no when you don't feel ready." I kept that in mind, but I didn't know yet how important that advice would be. The wedding day came. It was January 1969. I was 20, and Marcus was 27. The ceremony was at the First Baptist Church, where I had been baptized. I wore the wedding dress my mom and aunts had sewn for me with love and care. As I walked down the aisle with my dad, I saw Marcus standing at the altar. He looked just like the man of my dreams. I thought, this is it. This is the man I'll be with forever. We went on our honeymoon to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, a simple inn by the mountains. It was the first time we spent the night together, the first time we really touched. Marcus was gentle, patient with me at first, but after a couple of days he started getting more demanding. "My woman has to satisfy me the way I like," he said one night, pushing me to do things that made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to disappoint him, so I swallowed my tears and obeyed. He was my husband, after all. Isn't that what wives do? We came back to Nashville, and things slowly started changing. It was still the same old life, but with subtle shifts. Little things that felt wrong. Complaints about the food, the way I dressed, who I talked to at work. He started criticizing everything. Then, one day, I found out Marcus had been cheating on me, and it was all downhill from there. It was around that time when I noticed the neighbor Agnes getting closer to Marcus. She was a few years older than me, beautiful with blonde dyed hair, always dressed up even at home. She worked as a cashier at the local supermarket and lived next door to us. At first, she seemed like an angel, bringing me homemade cookies, talking to me when she saw me upset, asking if I needed help. She became my friend, someone I could confide in. "Does he hit you?" she asked one day after seeing me cry in the yard. "Honey, that's not normal. You need to get out of there." "I can't," I replied. "I have nowhere to go." "Yes, you do," she insisted. "The world is big. You're young, beautiful, and smart. You deserve better." Marcus didn't like our friendship. He said Agnes was a loose woman, that she was leading me astray. But I defended her, saying she was the only friend I had. What I didn't know was that while I was teaching, Marcus and Agnes were getting closer in another way. One day I found a matchbox from a bar on the other side of town. It seemed strange. Marcus usually drank at home or at the local bar. When I asked, he said, "I just wanted to check out a new place." "Now you're going to control where I drink?" I asked, but I didn't push it. Later, I noticed a strange perfume on his shirt, sweet and strong. "I bumped into a woman on the bus," he said, irritated. "Stop being so paranoid." But something didn't feel right. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. The signs were all there. Marcus was cheating on me. Months later, he found a new job at a hardware store. It was a lower pay job, but at least it was something. For a while, things seemed better. Marcus drank less, smiled more, and started taking care of himself again. He began to wear cologne, dress nicely, and take proper showers. I thought, maybe things are finally turning around. One night, I told him, "Life's getting better. Maybe we should think about having a child." Even after everything, my heart still raced at the thought of a happy family. I was foolish, holding on to hope. But on May 15, 1975, everything changed. I'll never forget that date. It was a rainy Friday. I came home early from school because the ceiling in one of the classrooms had a leak, and they sent the kids home. I opened the door to our house and heard laughter. Laughter from our bedroom. A woman's laughter. My heart stopped. I knew what I would find, but still I wasn't ready for it. I quietly cracked open the bedroom door, and there they were, Marcus and Agnes in our bed, in the place where I slept every night. I shut the door silently without them noticing that I saw them, and walked to the kitchen. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just felt numb. An overwhelming emptiness took over me. Half an hour later, I heard the back door open and close. Agnes sneaked out, trying not to get caught. Marcus came out of the bedroom, whistling. When he saw me sitting in the kitchen, he froze. "What are you doing home at this hour?" he asked, trying to act casual. "They let us out early because of the rain." He looked at me, at the clock on the wall, and then back at me. I could see the exact moment he realized I knew. "Did you see something?" he asked, his voice cold. "I saw everything," I said, my voice steady. He didn't get mad, he laughed as though it was a joke. "So what are you going to do about it? Who are you going to tell?" I stood up, my legs shaking. "I'm leaving. It's over, Marcus." His laughter turned into a growl, his eyes darkened. "You're not going anywhere. You're my wife. You leave when I say you can leave." "I'm not a thing to be owned," I replied, my voice breaking through the fear. "I said it's over. Let me go." That's when he blocked my path. He was a big man, his body like a wall of anger. I tried to get around him, but he pushed me back, sending me crashing onto the chair. The shock was worse than the pain. "You're not going anywhere," he said through gritted teeth. "This house is mine. You are mine. The house is rented, Marcus, and I'm not your property," I shot back. "I'm leaving. Let me pass." That's when he slapped me hard across the face, throwing me to the side. "Shut up, whore. Spying on me now? Who gave you the right?" Another slap, harder this time, followed by a punch to my stomach that took my breath away. I fell to my knees, tears and pain blurring my vision. He grabbed my hair, dragged me across the kitchen floor. "Want to know why I was with Agnes? Because she's a real woman. She knows how to please a man. Unlike you." He threw me against the wall. I hit my head hard and saw stars. "Worthless," he spat. "You can't even give me a child, Baron." He kept hitting me, punches, slaps, kicks. I tried to protect myself, to curl up, but he was stronger. At some point I stopped feeling the pain. I just wanted it to end. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like hours, but maybe it was minutes. Finally, he stopped. I was lying on the floor, barely able to move. My eye was so swollen I could barely see, and blood was everywhere. Marcus stood over me, panting. Then he spit on the floor beside me. "If you try to leave again, I'll kill you. Got it?" I didn't answer. I didn't have the strength to speak. "Understand?" he yelled, kicking me again. "I understand," I whispered. He left, leaving me there, broken and alone. I lay there for what seemed like forever, each breath hurting, each movement agony. But something inside me told me I needed to get out of there. If I stayed, he would kill me. I dragged myself to the phone, barely able to move. I thought about calling my parents, but I knew my father would come and kill Marcus. I thought about calling the police, but back then, they didn't get involved in domestic issues. I called the one person I trusted, my older sister, Lois. Sally helped me. Marcus, he beat me bad. She rushed over with her husband, John. When they saw me, they were in shock. We're going to the hospital, John said, picking me up as if I were a child. No, not the hospital, I protested. He'll find me there. Then to our house, Sally said. When we got to their place, Lois went to get some of my clothes, but she came back pale. John, there's blood on the bed. A lot of blood, and it's not hers. At that moment I knew. Agnes wasn't just Marcus's lover. Something was wrong. The next few days were a blur. My parents returned and were horrified when they saw me. You should have told us sooner, my dad said, his eyes full of concern. We would have gotten you out of there after the first slap. I was ashamed, Dad. I didn't want to disappoint you. Disappoint us? Never. The only disappointment is that man you chose. I took medical leave from work, and the principal assured me that I still had a job when I was ready to return. I moved back in with my parents, into my old childhood room. I started to rebuild my life, step by step. Then, almost a month later, the police came. They'd found Marcus. He was dead, and so was Agnes. They'd had a fight at her house. Marcus had been armed and tried to escape, but the police shot him. He was dead, just like her. The police told me that he'd buried Agnes in an unmarked grave, covered her with cement and lime. I had no idea she was dead until they found her. I guess I didn't want to know. I didn't have to worry about him anymore, but I'd lost so much along the way. My trust, my innocence, and my hope in love, but I was alive, and that was the only thing that mattered. The days following the police visit felt like an endless blur. I moved back into my childhood home, where my parents did everything they could to help me recover. My mom cooked meals for me, made sure I was eating properly, and my dad, quiet as ever, kept checking in on me, making sure I was okay. I never once doubted their love, but the weight of everything still felt like a boulder on my chest. Sally was my rock during those days. She stayed with me, talked to me, and held me when the tears would come, which was often. She'd ask me every day how I was feeling, how I was doing emotionally, and I would always say I was fine. But I wasn't. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I felt hollow, broken, and lost. I was living in a haze, but Lois, ever the fighter, wouldn't let me stay in that haze for too long. Ruth, you can't stay stuck in this pain forever. You have to start living again, for yourself, for your happiness. I didn't know how. I didn't know where to begin. I still saw the bruises in my mind, felt the weight of his words, the sound of his laughter echoing in my ears. Every time I closed my eyes, it felt like I was right back there in that kitchen, helpless and broken. One day, after another long, sleepless night, Sally suggested we go for a walk. You need some fresh air, Ruth. I don't care if it's just around the block. Just get out of this house. I agreed, though I didn't feel like it. We walked slowly, my steps unsure, as if the earth beneath me could crack open at any moment. But the sunlight was gentle, the breeze soft, and I couldn't deny that it felt good to be outside. We talked about nothing important, just the way old friends do. but it was exactly what I needed to feel normal again, to not be reminded every second of the hell I'd been through. And that was when I started to realize that maybe, just maybe, I could heal. It wasn't going to happen overnight, and it wasn't going to be easy, but I knew that I had people who loved me, and they weren't going anywhere. It wasn't until a few months later, when I was still living with my parents, that I started working on putting my life back together. I began therapy, something I should have done much sooner, but fear had kept me away. I remember my first session vividly. I walked in nervous, unsure, but the therapist was kind, understanding, and she didn't rush me to talk, she just listened. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could say everything that had been trapped inside me for so long, every tear, every pain, every moment of hopelessness. It was hard, but it felt like I was finally taking control of my life. I slowly started going back to work as well, teaching the kids I had always loved. It wasn't easy at first. I'd get flashbacks during lessons, but with time, the children's laughter and their eagerness to learn started to heal me. Every day, I would go home exhausted, but it was a good exhaustion, a sign that I was doing something positive, something I loved. Sally kept pushing me to get involved again, to let life in. "You can't live in the past forever, Ruth," she'd say. "There's more to you than what Marcus did to you." And she was right. There was more to me. I wasn't just a victim. I was a teacher, a woman, a mother, and I still had a purpose. I started taking small steps toward finding peace. I would spend quiet evenings alone, reading books, journaling, and just being with myself. Slowly, I began to rediscover who I was before everything fell apart. I wasn't just Marcus's wife. I was Ruth, strong, resilient, and capable of moving forward. Years passed. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it sure helps them to fade into the background. I never forgot what happened, but I learned to live with it, to make it a part of my past, not my present. Sally had been married for years by then, with kids of her own. My life was different, but I had come to accept it. I was no longer broken, but I knew I still had work to do. One day, my mom took me aside and said something that changed everything for me. "Ruth, I know you've been through a lot, and I see you fighting every day to be strong. But there's one thing I want to tell you. You have to forgive him." I was stunned. "Forgive him, Mom? After everything he did to me?" She nodded. "Forgiving him isn't for him, sweetheart. It's for you. Holding on to that anger, that pain, it's keeping you chained to the past. You don't have to forget what he did, but you need to let it go so you can move on. You deserve peace." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't sure I was ready, but I knew deep down that I couldn't keep holding on to the bitterness. It was poisoning me. So I began to work on forgiveness, not for, but for me. It was a slow and difficult process. I would pray for peace. I would repeat to myself, "I forgive him." And each time it felt a little less heavy. By 1979, I had remarried. His name was Robert, and he was kind, patient, and loving. He accepted me with all my scars, emotional and physical. He didn't expect me to be perfect, but he loved me for who I was. and in return I loved him fiercely. We had children of our own. And every day I worked to be the kind of mother that I'd always wanted to be, the kind my own mother had been to me. And I realized as I looked at my family one quiet evening that I had rebuilt my life. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I had created a safe, loving home for my children. I had found love again, but this time it was different. It wasn't based on control or fear. It was built on respect, trust, and partnership. As time went on, I kept telling my story, not just to friends, but to anyone who needed to hear it. I wanted them to know that no matter how bad life gets, you can always start over. You don't have to let the past define who you are. And with every retelling, I grew stronger. I wasn't just Grandma Ruth anymore. I was a survivor, and I wore that title proudly. It had been a long road to get here, but I had made it. And as I sat there with my grandchildren, watching them laugh and play, I knew I had done something right. It was my turn to teach them the lessons I had learned, to show them that no matter what life throws at you, you can rise, you can rebuild, you can find happiness again. And I did. Against all odds, I found it. This extended version keeps Ruth's healing journey as the focal point, showing her gradual transformation from victim to survivor. It explores the steps she takes toward forgiveness, finding new love, and rebuilding her life, while adding depth to her emotional recovery.